When her brother-in-law was taken into custody Wednesday morning for the murder of her sister, Melinda Moorman says she wasn't surprised. Still,
I felt great sadness, and also a relief.
On May 8th, 2021, on the one-year anniversary of her younger sister's death, someone broke her silence for the first time. It was Melinda Moorman, Suzanne Morphew's older sister. She chose to break her silence after Barry was arrested, and what she revealed about what she knew was truly shocking.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science. At the time, Melinda's story made headlines everywhere. Besides CBS, the New York Post, People, The Sun, the Daily Mail, Inside Edition, and others. Today, that media has been removed from Inside Edition. Looking closer at the media narrative, you'll notice something else is missing. Although Melinda says she received a powerful text from her sister on the last day Suzanne was seen alive, she doesn't provide any real information on that text. We find out Suzanne was scared and that they were arguing about financial issues, but there's something else missing, isn't there? Here's the Daily Mail reporting on the same story. She said, I think pressures and stresses in life, I think financial pressure bears in on people very heavily. It creates an atmosphere of discontent and strife, and sometimes living beyond your means is a very hard thing to do. Learning to be content with what you have is a very powerful thing in this life, and it brings great peace. And then she says, I can't really say more than that. It's telling that Melinda adds, learning to be content, which is a slight dig, I think, at her sister and Barry, which for me is completely inappropriate in a murder investigation. Is that what Suzanne was supposed to do? Stay in the marriage and learn to be content? Stay in a bad marriage because you're supposed to be content is what can get you killed, and if anything, Suzanne stayed longer than was safe for her. Before we get to the rest of this analysis, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. By the way, I just want to highlight 2 reviews for some books that I've written on the Madeleine McCann case. This is a review for Deeper into Darkness, a cogent and considered approach utterly enhanced by photos and footnotes that took my understanding to another level. Thanks, Gary, for that review. And then there's another one from Mauve Peace from June 2020 where she says, the author's theory makes perfect sense. If you're interested in my theory on the McCann case, I'll put a link to that in the description. If you find this analysis worthwhile, and I must say I'm pretty emotional about it, it definitely makes me quite upset, please do hit the thanks button and let's get started. Now, the Daily Mail, to its credit, notes pertinently the fact that Suzanne's sister didn't share anything from the actual text. CBS noted another cryptic remark, Melinda saying, I can't say anything more than that. Well, I wonder why. If we go to the 131-page affidavit, Gene is there, that's Suzanne's father. Andy is there, Suzanne's brother. More than 13 typed pages of the affidavit deal with interviews with friends and family from page 46 to 59. More than 20 people are listed along with their various statements regarding Suzanne, her backstory, and what they know about her. But it's only through Suzanne's neighbor, Sheila, that we find out about the affair. We eventually find Melinda's statement, but under a different family name, Bormunk, and this is what she says. Melinda Bormunk was interviewed by FBI Special Agent Richard Tipton on May 19, 2020 at the FBI office in Knoxville, Tennessee. Bormunk is the sister of Suzanne and last talked to her on Friday, May 8th via text message. Bormunk sent a text to Suzanne on Mother's Day, May 10th, 2020 and received no response. For the previous 6 months, Suzanne had texted Melinda and told her that things were getting tense between her and her husband Barry. Now, what is also interesting here is that it seems like the authorities had to get hold of Melinda. I'm not sure whether Melinda actually contacted the authorities herself, but it's quite a long time from May 10th to them actually only interviewing her on May 19th. Melinda advised that Suzanne told her that she had come to realize what a narcissist her husband Barry was and that she had come to terms with his narcissistic ways. Melinda described Barry as one who lives a double life, a liar and adulterer. So she was aware of this. Note she didn't mention any of this in the media. A bully, one that has to have control, cunning, fools people a lot, loves money and treats his wife and daughters as trophies. Melinda advised that her sister Suzanne was a codependent person and was very dependent on her husband Barry. They lived a phony life and would often put on a front as if they were happy together. Melinda thought that it was unusual to take a road trip on Mother's Day weekend, especially with the coronavirus pandemic, that's in terms of their daughters. Melinda advised that she received a phone call from her father, who lives in Michigan, on Monday, May 11th, to tell Melinda that Suzanne was missing. Do you see what kind of absolutely incisive psychological insight, one that this case is crying out for, that we get from the sister, and yet it's the most sort of private aspect? On November 20, 2020, Special Agent Grissing spoke with her about the message Suzanne sent on her phone on Friday, May 8th, 2020 at 9:28 a.m. By the way, I think it was the very next day that Suzanne made those notes on her phone about all the things, listing all the things that Barry was doing. It's hard dealing with the harsh abrasiveness and having to show respect. He's been, and then there's that word, emotionally and physically not treating her very well. There's so much. I went through a period of acceptance and I feel more angry now, anger at what I've allowed. Melinda told Special Agent Grissing that she did not have context for why Suzanne texted on May 8th that Barry was physically and emotionally the way that he was. She had not discussed those things with Suzanne and was surprised to see her text that. When Melinda found out on May 11th that Suzanne was missing, she said, damn it, damn it, damn it, to herself, because she was certain that Barry killed her. Melinda described years of Suzanne being a submissive housewife to Barry in Indiana, allowing him to control their finances, and Suzanne's long-time suspicions about Barry having affairs. There's confirmation again from another source about this side of the equation. Melinda said that Suzanne loved Barry and wanted to be a good wife and mother to her two girls. Melinda thought that the primary reason for the move to Colorado was Barry's long-term desire to move there for hunting. She thought Suzanne threw caution to the wind and moved in an attempt to save their marriage and start over. Melinda provided documentation that Suzanne inherited about $208,000 from their mother, Adrienne, who passed away in 2019, and another $217,000 when her grandmother-in-law, Helen Burnett, passed away in 2016. Add those together and it's almost $500,000. But there's still something missing from this interview. Even though the affidavit is peppered with verbatim text messages, even screenshots of the most important messages, something isn't acknowledged here. And that's the fact that after receiving this cry for help from her sister, a very long text from a frightened woman the day before her murder, Melinda deleted the text. This to me is the most shocking aspect of this entire case. On May 27th, about 3 weeks after appearing all over the media, Melinda did an interview with a YouTube channel where she admitted, regarding that final text from Suzanne, she said, "Oh, I can't leave this on my phone. I could accidentally text that to the wrong person, and I don't want to have that fall into the wrong hands. So it went into my heart, and I decided I would delete that text." I just want to say, and these are my words, if it was me, if I received a text from someone and the next day they were murdered, I don't know who would be a bigger champion for justice than me, banging on the doors of the police station, calling up detectives constantly. And it's no wonder someone close to Suzanne expected he could get away with murder given this response, given this attitude, because he knew how those close to her, some of them, wanted to maintain a nice and clean, innocent, good exterior to their church friends. In other words, someone who would keep the secrets. And wasn't he right? Look at this article from the Mountain Mail dated June 11th. In an interview with Mountain Mail, the month following her media blitz following Barry's arrest, Melinda opened up even more about her faith, about her lingering fondness for Barry, and something else. She describes being in a deeply unhappy marriage for years herself, and doing this because their own father was an alcoholic and being emotionally unavailable, emotionally absent. And so there was this willingness, this need to have a dominant, controlling man at the center of their own homes, at the helm of their own homes. And so what she said to this publication was, we were both committed to our marriages and were deeply unhappy for years. So why would you say, wow, she needed to be content with what she had? Women like myself and Suzanne mistake control for love. It felt safe to us after having had no one at the helm at home. We think a man in charge is security and end up with dominant, controlling guys. We give up our own identity and trust and do it their way. Interesting is what Melinda told this publication about that final text, after waxing lyrical about memories of her murder suspect brother-in-law. The article describes endearing memories of Barry, and I thought that was the sweetest thing. And he was our hero. This is after the fact, after her sister was murdered. On the Friday before Suzanne disappeared, Melinda received a text from Suzanne that she has shared only with authorities. In that text, Suzanne shared the struggle she was having with Barry. That text message, Melinda said, is only for a court of law. Well, it is in the sea of inauthenticity that crime and dishonesty brew and percolate. And I do think if Suzanne's bones weren't found in that field, her killer knew he stood a damn good chance of getting away with it, because of the apathy of some of those closest to Suzanne, who, though they knew the truth, would still be reluctant to share all of it. It reminds me of the Bible verse from Hosea 4, verse 6, "My children perish for lack of knowledge." I'm not going to take it further than that. In the next episode, we'll deal with shocker number 2. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.